Lynette, Michelle, good morning. That's right. It just wrapped up moments ago. As you guys mentioned, 29-year-old John Renderneck arrested in Florida. Now, he was a resident of the Palisades. He was living in the Palisades, and we have Chief McDonnell with us right now. Thank you for being with us. Talk with us a little bit about your role. Did you have officers who arrived during that January 1st call, during that initial fire?
You know, on the January 1st call, I don't have specifics other than to say that whenever there's a fire in a residential area, our role is to be there in support of the fire partners and to be able to do evacuations, be able to clear out the area, notify people that there is a fire, particularly one that could have implications like we saw with the Palisades Fire, to be able to facilitate ingress and egress for emergency vehicles and get other people out of the area, and then subsequently to be able to provide crime suppression for the fallout from a fire.
Talk with me about your guys' role in the investigation, this very lengthy investigation.
Yeah, no, a tremendous collaboration, partnership among a number of different agencies. We rolled out there our robbery, homicide, and major crimes division detectives rolled out there right from the beginning. Once the ATF's national response group came out, they took over the investigation. They are the best in the business as far as this type of investigation. We worked in support of their mission in a task force configuration. Our partners on the fire side, arson investigators, as well as others throughout the region, then worked very closely together. It was a very, very thorough, very detailed investigation, and one that I'm very proud to say that the working relationship we have here in Southern California amongst various police, fire, public safety agencies is like nowhere else, and we work hard at that, and I think it paid big dividends in this case.
Yeah, and Chief, we understand that the defendant is making his first court appearance today in Florida. Will the LAPD be involved in any way during all of this court proceedings, during the entire process, and if so, in what way?
You know, potentially as witnesses, our detectives were helpful in the recovery, and then the follow-up investigation. Is an awful lot of work goes into putting things together, as you mentioned in the statements there. All of the terabytes of information they have about the suspect, the background, the area, the cell phone, triaging, things like that. A lot of work was done by a lot of different people, so potentially our folks could be witnesses to any or all of the things that will be testified to.
I understand. And when we look just behind you right now, we see those paintings that we understand were uploaded or seen on ChatGPT of a fire and people running from the crowd, really disturbing images. Yeah. Is that something that the LAPD is reviewing as well?
No, there's one investigation with ATF being primary on that. We're in support of that. So certainly as part of the task force, our folks were involved with that. But we defer to ATF on the investigation, and how this then goes for the prosecution is up to the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yeah. And has the LAPD ever been involved in such a significant fire to this scale and an investigation as thorough and intense as the one we're dealing with right now? I mean, we're talking about thousands of homes that were destroyed, buildings destroyed, a dozen people who were killed.
Yeah, no, this is the largest fire that L.A. has ever experienced. The tragic fire, the loss of lives and loss of property, the devastation to a very important part of the city can't be really described for somebody who hasn't driven through there or didn't drive through there initially. Certainly, our hearts go out to the people who certainly the families of survivors, those who were killed and hurt, as well as then those who lost homes and all of their property. Very, very difficult year for everybody involved, and certainly for all of us as Angelenos as well.
And Chief, that's my next question. What is your message to so many people who have been waiting to find out the cause of the fire, first off, which wasn't quite talked about too much? They say it was caused by an open flame, but they're not giving us too much more information just yet, so we're standing by for that. But what is your message to people who finally feel like maybe there's an answer? They know that an arrest was made, and the folks up there say they're very confident that they have the guy.
Yeah. No, my message to the community is thank you. Sincerely, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your partnership, your resilience in getting through this tragic disaster that you experienced, we all experienced, and please be patient as we work our way through the prosecution, because there's a lot of information that ATF has, the U.S. Attorney has, that'll come out in trial, but to put anything like this out prematurely would jeopardize that.
Yeah, and what happens next? What can folks expect next as they follow this case?
You know, the initial court appearance this morning. From that, then it'll begin to roll out. Certainly, both sides. He'll be appointed or have an attorney, a defense attorney, and then court dates will be set up subsequent. And you know, there'll be delays and there'll be continuances and that kind of thing, as always happens in a major case. But the case will be aggressively pursued by the U.S. Attorney's Office, and you know, you've got some of the best folks in the business doing that.
Is there a sigh of relief for you as you guys find the person you guys believe is responsible for this? You know,
I guess some level of closure in that we've come to a point where somebody is being held accountable for the actions that caused so much devastation and tragic circumstances for so many people. So, you know, a sigh in that, you know, we've gotten to this part. The prosecution's an important part of the case remaining, and as we move forward, we try and find some good out of every tragic circumstance, and I think the good is that people came together for, you know, a common cause, if you will, and everybody was helpful and resilient in trying to be able to do the best we can under terrible circumstances.
Yeah, and they continue to do that, certainly. Thank you, Chief. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Lynette, Michelle, like we said, it just wrapped up talking to the chief right now. He says, sure, there's a bit of a sigh of relief knowing that they believe they have the person who is responsible for this fire. Now, during the news conference, they also mentioned that the fire started January 1st, right? And they say that it had been smoldering and it was burning underground for quite some time. And that's how it ignited January 7th, right? And turned into the devastation that it did. Still a lot more details that we're gathering. We're going to go ahead and look through all of the court paperwork, the filings, the charges, and there will be much more throughout the day. Lynette, Michelle?
You know, Lauren, so much has been tight-lipped, right, leading up to this investigation. What has been the mood there amongst journalists upon hearing this news today?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good question. A lot of people just asking questions, hoping for more answers, right? We've all been following this so closely. We were on the fire lines when this happened, right? We were in the middle of the firestorm. So it's interesting to see how this has all unfolded. And I know early on a lot of people were asking about the fireworks. Remember, January 1st, that was something that people were talking about. Neighbors said, well, there were fireworks on the hillside where it started. But we asked the acting U.S. attorney about that, and he said that is not to blame. In fact, he said fireworks, and I hope you guys hear me okay right now. I just got word that the mic may be cutting out a little bit. You hear me okay? Yeah, so they were saying that the fireworks were not present during the time of the fire, so that's something that is not, in fact, the case that a lot of people had questions about. When asked what was the cause, they said there was an open flame. Perhaps we'll find out more about that as the court proceedings continue.
You know, the one thing I do want to mention with you and get your reaction from, Lauren, because, you know, you're on the fire lines. All of our reporters are out there with these grieving families. 12 people died, more than 6,000 homes destroyed. The devastation is still so strong in that community. People are still living with what happened 9 months later, and they will for years to come. So this is just the beginning of part of that recovery. Are you sensing that as well, Lauren?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we've been talking with a lot of families, especially now that school has started again. A lot of families who are relocating to other places. Their kiddos, their friends are all getting split up right now. So when you talk with the chief, he kind of had that same sense that, sure, there's some closure there, but this is something that people are still dealing with right now. So this is obviously big news to know that they have somebody who is being held responsible for the fire, but still there are so many ways that this is impacting people without homes, without the businesses, their livelihoods. So this is certainly something really heavy as you look back and really reflect on the past few, not even months now. I mean, we're talking nearly a year, almost coming up on a year. It's hard to imagine what this entire journey has been like for the people who live there, who are tuning in right now and getting all of this information, trying to process the information themselves. And like you said, it's really just the beginning. And of course, we're going to follow all of it very closely.
And still know why. We just still don't know why. Lauren Coronado, thank you so much for that live reporting and for getting that one-on-one interview with the Chief of Police. Again,